Welcome to Brampton Focus. On October 27th, 2014, the name on top of the door for the mayor of Brampton changed. It was a tumultuous election, a little bit of scandal, a little bit of infighting, as one would say, but in the end, Linda Jeffrey remained supreme and became the 50th mayor of the city of Brampton. We saw her very first budget in 2016, and we've seen change and we've seen things taking place positively in City Council. My name is Michael A. Charbon. Next on Brampton Focus, we sit down with the mayor of Brampton, Madam Mayor Linda Jeffrey, and talk about 2017 and the year to come. That's next on Brampton Focus. Welcome back to Brampton Focus. It's the 9th largest city in Canada, which is a pretty important position, and the 50th time that a mayor has been elected to the lovely city of Brampton. We're speaking of Madam Mayor Linda Jeffrey. This is year 2, Madam Mayor. We thank you for coming back to Brampton Focus. We had the pleasure of entertaining you the first year when you came into office, and now here we are, year 2, and we thank you for being here with us to discuss a little bit about what's going on and what we have to look forward to.
Nice to be back.
So not to be a Debbie Downer, but here we are. A new budget was just released for 2017, and we know that in the last 3 years, the tax increases and the increases to the people of Brampton have accumulated to about 13%. We're looking this year in 2017 at about 2.3%. Increase. I know that one of the things that you ran on, amongst others, when you were going for mayor, was that you wanted to have accountability and there was fiscal responsibility, and also in an effort to show the constituents of Brampton, you reduced your pay.
Yep.
Before I get in
every year.
Every year.
Every year it's $50,000.
Right. So before I get into the nitty-gritty of this, is there something over-encompassing that you want to say about the 2017 budget?
Well, I think, it's the tough medicine that we got from Jim McCarter. Our Auditor General told us last year that we had to take care of business. We had to look after our infrastructure. We had to find a way to better scope the number of staff we had, because that's a fixed number you can't play with. And we had to build up our reserves. And I think that this budget delivers on that. And there are things that I would do differently in the budget, and I'm sure you'll raise some of those issues. But I think I'm really pleased Council went forward with the 2% infrastructure levy. That's the right thing to do. It's the brave thing to do. And it's always a challenge managing a high growth community with a lot of assets. I think we have 161 facilities that need to be upgraded. And really, we've got a lot of them that are only in good shape. They haven't been maintained or taken care of. And in your own home, if your roof is leaking, you need to fix that leak. You don't go out and buy a new couch, which is kind of what we have been doing up till now.
So the McCarter report, you make reference to that, and $1.2 million in infrastructure gap, so that relates to what you're saying.
Yep.
So Brampton did not invest that $1.2 million in an ongoing basis. They're talking about depleted reserves, so the bank account, as far as the city is concerned, $141 million in debt carried by the city.
Yep.
I mean, when we heard and the election, one of the things that your predecessor said was that we were in good shape.
Yep.
So that's a little bit of revelation. Growing strain on payrolls. 2/3 of the budget increase covers salaries of well-paid bureaucrats, quotation marks. I mean, this is McCarter, who got paid $50,000, and I don't think that that's an exorbitant fee for what
it was. Money well spent. It was a sobering revelation that we were not in as good shape, but he said that there were storm clouds on the horizon.
Yep.
They're still on the horizon. We still have a city that keeps growing and needs that investment in infrastructure. But we did the right thing. We're turning the ship in a different direction. We're having the conversations, and he was very, very good in helping the public understand you need to put money away for a rainy day. We're a city that owns over $5 billion in assets. You must take care of them. They belong to me, they belong to you, and everybody watching today. We have to take care of our assets.
So the most troubling thing that has come up, amongst several others which we'll touch on, is that in 2016, the councillors voted themselves a 7% raise, which was a total of over $500,000. When we look at the tumultuous election that took place, the proposed scandals, the non-proposed scandals, some of the media in Toronto, particularly paper publications that got involved in this, and they started stirring up stuff that wasn't there and was there. And we were looking to kind of resolve all that and compartmentalize it and move forward as a city would go. And the councillors write themselves a 7% raise. I mean, you took a 50 grand hit every year, as you point out. So you're at the front of the parade. Yep. Like, where do they get off doing that? I mean, it's almost offensive.
The person who gets to make that decision is the voter. So in October 2018, you'll get to decide whether you think that this was the right thing to do. And
that's a nice answer, but that still doesn't answer the moral question.
I thought it was the wrong thing to do.
How dare they do that?
I thought it was the wrong thing to do. What they used to do when I was on council was make a decision for the future term of council. If you think it's the right thing to do, put it on the ballot and give the transparency and accountability to the voter that this is what you plan to do. We want to attract the best and the brightest, not only to our bureaucratic staff, but to our political staff. And I would argue, I'm going to say something that I talked about in the election, there are people who are on council who were there when I arrived in 1991. And that are still on council. Yep. I don't think I make a good decision if I'm in the same place all the time and I don't up my game, I don't learn something new.
You got to get out of the basement.
I think you need, and I would argue that virtually everybody watching today doesn't believe councillors should be paid at all. They should be doing it for the love of the job. This is a really difficult job. I think you should pay them, councillors, and I think that our jobs don't go Monday to Friday. They're not 9 to 5, and good people don't do it for the money, but it is egregious when people are working 3 and 4 jobs to pay their taxes, to put their kids through school, to do this during your term of office, especially when you didn't run on it.
When the people of Brampton look at their property tax over the last 3 years going up 13%, and they start to see councillors raising, which is already a good pay as far as standards concerned, by 7%.
Yep.
That's brutal. I unfortunately have other things here, little candies. When they released the budget online, they unfortunately left out about 100 pages or so, interestingly enough, to the tune of about $2.6 million worth of expenditure. Funny enough. And when it was pointed out, so some of the things here, this is a litany of you got to be kidding. $232,000 earmarked for corporate campus artwork, $650,000 for the renovation of the 3rd floor, plus another $600,000 for a retrofit, $116,000 for artwork and big screen TVs. We've got an internet question on that from someone who just about blew up. And then $100,000 for new way fining signage. Like, when you look at stuff like this, you look at the horribleness of government to spend that when we need to be more fiscally responsible. The Ontario provincial government has $407 billion. How do you answer to this? Not you, but you're the mayor.
No, but I get it. The buck stops at the mayor's office. And this was contained in a budget book that this is the first time our staff have actually produced this level of detail. So I want to thank our staff for doing that. It's a lot of work. And I appreciate that some councillors didn't actually go through the book and go into the granular detail. I did. So I did notice the artwork and I spoke against it.
Does this offend you?
Yes. It bothers me because I can't defend it out in the public, and I wouldn't spend it in my home. And I think that's the
I would have loved to have seen you defend that here. This would have been all over the internet if you wanted to.
I spoke against the artwork, and I didn't believe the fitness room made a lot of sense. That was another $200,000.
Yeah, that's $200,000. When there's a YMCA up the street and all councillors get a discount. What's going on, kids?
We get a break on fitness passes in our facilities. Right. I'd rather we used our own facilities. Walk the walk. I think that makes sense.
You think?
And we have showers and we have lockers and places to put your bicycle. So if you run or you bike, you can do that around City Hall and you can be fit. I don't expect everybody in the public to pay for everything with regards to my fitness. I don't expect them to give me a break on everything. So I didn't think those were good expenses. Civic Center is another really big ticket item. There's a number of our fitness facilities, whether it's recreation centers or libraries, that we're spending a lot of money on. But the Civic Center was a facility that we debated when I was on council back in 2003 and back.
And so we revisit something like that.
It was the roof. It was the theater.
$555,000. You know, let's...
That's only a little piece of it. The bigger piece was over $2 million. I don't know why we fixed the theater up. It was, to me, a safety hazard more than a decade ago. I'm glad people woke up to the fact that it needs a repair, but I don't know that a repair will fix this. We need to decide, should we own the facility? Should we tear it down and build something bigger? It's prime real estate. We need affordable housing. We need shopping. We need entertainment. I want to build business into our formula. Is there a tenant, a client out there who would like this great site? All
these unfortunate costs are counterintuitive to that.
Yep.
Within your budget, you've got $3.4 million to enhancing transit. When we come back in segment number 2, I'm going to touch on that. And again, I don't want to be Debbie Downer. I mean, we've got to talk about a university, we've got to talk about a hospital, with the infrastructure being spent, and transit. These are all positive things, but unfortunately, the nuts and bolts of it and that kitchen table logic is you got to sit around and pay for the bills. We're speaking to Madam Mayor Linda Jeffrey, talking about 2017, the second year, as we march forward. My name is Michael A. Charbon. You're watching Brampton Focus. We'll be back with more right after this. Welcome back to Brampton Focus, year 2 in the reign of Madam Mayor Linda Jeffrey, the 50th mayor of the city of Brampton. 9th largest in Canada, as we repeat. That's an impressive scenario. You hold a lot of people's lives and dreams here in this city. A lot of people who have come to this country because they believe in the Canadian dream, if you would say. One of the things that the McCarter report talked about, a concern, was reserves. And when we talk about reserves, we're talking about either cash at hand or the ability to utilize cash. Explain to us, if you can, what that lack of reserves are and how limiting that is and how important it is to have reserves.
Big question.
Yeah, it is.
Lots of pressure to get this right. I think one of the things we heard from Jim McCarter was it's important to have money for a rainy day. You need to have significant reserves when you're a large city. We have a lot of cash on hand, but we didn't have the reserves. When I left the city back in 2003, we had just sold Brampton Hydro. Very difficult publicly to do, but it gave us...
Bad move?
I think it was the best move Brampton could have made then, based on the rules.
Good answer.
And those dollars, well, it was we were one of the first. We were out the gate and we got a really good price. We got $262 million to put in our reserves because Brampton actually hadn't had reserves before that date. Nothing significant. Those reserves gave us the ability to do things that we needed to do as a high growth city. 9th largest means 600,000 people.
Yep.
We're getting 900,000. You need to build the roads, you need to build the infrastructure to support the business and the residents that live in your community and give them the quality of life that they deserve.
So how does reserves play into that planning?
For us, we need to have the proper reserves in order to do other things. They are a springboard to get something else. So for example, when we want to do something like Riverwalk in our downtown, the federal government will be our partner, but only if we put some money on the table. We have to put skin in the game to make it work. So in our case, we need to have the adequate reserves for our university, for Riverwalk, for other large projects. And one of the things, the debate that the Board of Trade and I had was they came out and said, you shouldn't be putting 2% away for a levy. I said, do you understand if you're a business and I say to you, I will give you $3 if you put $1 in. Right. That's a great return on investment. Your dollar goes much, much further. The same with a municipality. We all have to put some money on the table, some skin in the game to work with the federal, provincial government, who are all talking the infrastructure game in a way that they've never talked before. If you don't do it now, when will you do it? It's never been available in all the years I've been in municipal politics or provincial politics.
So when you talk about the assets that Brampton has, the new chairman of the Brampton Board of Trade said that Brampton is one of the greatest cities positioned for youth, educated, modern workforce because of the technological, the education, and the youth. When you talk about other assets, we're going to find out eventually where the university is going to be located. That's going to take some assets. How do you deal with capitalizing on these assets that Brampton has that may filter into your reserves, but is an important factor as well for attracting business?
So as a council, we need good information. And one of the new pieces of information that we're going to have in our possession on a go-forward basis is an asset management plan. The province requires it, the federal government requires it, and those asset management plans essentially give you a snapshot, a picture of where all your assets are, your bridges, your recreation centers, all of the physical assets. The city owns $5.1 billion of assets, and that doesn't include land. That's a lot of property and assets that you need to take care of and you need to maintain. So it's important to know where it stands. Does the roof need to be fixed? What's its useful life? Some of our floors that our soccer players play on, they don't last more than 10 years. Our buses have a life just under 10 years, that you can't drive them beyond that, and then that they're safe. So we as a corporation need to monitor and put a number beside what the value is, how much longer you can coax it, just as you in your own home. You take your car and you say, do I need a new one? No, let's move it on a little. I don't want a car loan. I don't want to have to pay for it. Let's nurse it on a little bit longer, put a little more money in. It makes sense to do that, and we need to do that as a corporation.
Taking the car object and nursing it along, the Brampton Focus had the occasion to speak to Andrea Horwath, who was one of our guests, and we talked about road tolls, and she is totally against road tolls and has taken the unprecedented position to go hand in hand with the Conservatives and say, Kathleen Wynne, no road tolls, we don't believe in it. How do you look upon the potential of the 410 leading to Brampton as being a toll road? What is your position on that as a mayor of Brampton?
I have a different position that you'll be shocked to hear, that I actually think road tolls make sense. It's the price of doing business. It's what I pay when I go on the 407 to get across the city quickly. I have choices about where I go, whether I take the 401 or I take the 407. On the 410, until it's finished, I think it'd be premature to talk about what you could do with it. I believe in HOV lanes, HOT lanes, because I think that's the price of doing business. We are a city that can't ignore the traffic and the logistics hub that we are. Our proximity to the airport is part of a huge employment zone that we want to grow. We need to get goods and services back and forth, not only on our roads, but on our rail lines. Those are the conversations I'm having.
But a $2 to TO fee is what you're looking at in Toronto. $2 to TO, that's my key line there, and $2 back.
But think about it.
It's $900 a year to someone who didn't
only if you're going to Toronto. Imagine the companies that want to come to Brampton.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
This is a good thing. We're going to attract businesses that want to locate in Brampton that don't want their employees going back and forth.
Then don't we want to say then, not to put words in your mouth, Madam Mayor, that we don't want to have a toll on the 410. We wanted a free highway to be that connector.
It is a free highway right now.
So my question back
is,
now,
I'm not considering
tolls on the 410?
I'm not considering it right now. I wouldn't even work on that. My goal is to get the 410 completed.
That puts people's concerns to rest.
But I think the tolling issue is one of those things you've got to talk about. And I think, for me, it's a benefit. I want to attract the businesses that are in Toronto, that have their employees already living in Brampton, so they don't have to commute as far. So I'm trying to recruit the companies, the head offices that want to come to a place where we still have the most undevelopable land in the GTA. We are the place people are looking to reposition their businesses because they don't want to be in Toronto and they don't want to be in all that logistic
double land transfer tax.
It's very expensive and it's hard to get around.
That preaches to the converted, and hopefully that appeals to those who are watching this. We want to spend our third and final segment about talking about some of the positive things that are going on in Brampton and what we have to look forward to in 2017 and election year 2018. How's about that, eh? Isn't that not scary? Okay.
Yeah.
When we come back, we've got multiple questions from BramptonFocus.ca, and we'll spend our final segment with Madam Mayor Linda Jeffrey talking about what's coming up. My name is Michael Lescharwal. You're watching Brampton Focus. We'll be back with more right after this. back to Brampton Focus, our final segment with Madam Mayor Linda Jeffrey, talking about what's happening. What's happening in 2017. So I want to get Madam Mayor right to some questions. We have a Facebook page, bramptonfocus.ca, and our Facebook page. And these are some of the questions that we've got. And I've got 5 rapid-fire questions for you. Don't look at me like that. There's 5 questions here. Question number 1 comes from a gentleman named Gordon Newman, and he asks, specific efforts to reduce spending. What are you doing to do that? What are you doing to attain that?
Well, certainly we've hired a new CEO who has found a way to restructure the organization so we don't have duplication. And I think you've seen the results of it. It's a fairly significant transformation at City Hall that we didn't do it to save money, but the result is that it will save money, and it will save money over the next 3 to 5 years. And there'll be more. We're trying to do things more efficiently. We're trying to find partnerships. We're working with Microsoft and other corporations to build innovation into City Hall and have somebody else pick up the majority of the tab.
But the people of Brampton should hold their councillors' feet to the fire when they see some of these expenditures and should really review who voted for what. Is that fair?
I think you should always be paying attention to who you vote for. You have 4 votes when you go: the mayor, the city, the region, and your school trustee. You should be always asking questions. And when I run into people, I say, who are your city and regional councillors? And people draw a blank. They look like deer in the headlights. Right. You should know who they are. They make decisions about services in your neighborhood.
So Stephen Leon asks, what is your feeling that before you became mayor, you had certain expectations, and now entering year 2, what does it feel like? Now you got a hold of the reins, 2 years running, you're not a newbie anymore. So what is the difference between expectations and reality for you?
Wow, how much time have I? It's different.
Quickly,
It's not partisan. Right. It's a different kind of a job. I would say it's been a very bumpy 2 years.
Disjointed council?
It's been a challenge to try and bring everybody together, and it's very difficult. You can't make people play nicely. I would say we've come a long way. I think having a new CEO and a new organization really does help, but it's going to get more interesting as time goes on. I mean, my job is to offer a vision. Not everybody accepts it, but I think for me, the answer to your question is when people are upset and arguing about how to run the city, that's a good thing. People care about the city, and we want to get it right.
Well, Sean O'Neill cares about the city. He says, what's the deal on 3 TVs and artwork for over $100,000? How the heck, I was going to say another word, do you justify that? He's concerned. He read the budget, and he's ticked.
I think there were a number of councillors, the people that decided to delay and stop this, like myself, were questioning. And we are in the midst of a review by the Ontario Ombudsman about procurement, the services that we buy in the city. I don't know what the results will be when they come back, but that's one of the reasons that we were in the mess we were in before I ran. Yeah. We need to do things differently. This is my money. I want to spend it carefully and thoughtfully. Well, it's our money, as I want to be able to justify it.
You're the steward.
Yep.
Speaking of which, Daniel Osborne says, like, what's with the problem of not having more snow plows, having more salters? He wants to see more effective addressing of our roads because that is the arteries by which the people travel back and forth to Brampton. Why can't we get more salters and snow plows?
So it's always a challenge finding that right balance, and 2 things dictate how you manage a storm: the duration and the amount of snow that falls. And our public works people do the absolute best. They're out there before the storm. Frequently you see salt on the road.
That's all great, Madam
when
Mayor.
we know.
We want more trucks and sanders.
I don't actually think you do. I think we have enough services. Okay. We just need to manage it well, and we're doing our very best. Okay. And I think that we always try to maintain the major roads and the smaller arteries afterwards. People don't like the timing. I get it. I'm the one who had to shovel out my driveway too.
We all do.
And cursed the plow driver, but I think they're doing a great job.
Last question quickly, because we have just under 2 minutes, and I have a couple of other things I want to refer to. Yep. John Ishmael says that we should have an auto insurance company based in Brampton for Bramptonians to be able to alleviate the most expensive auto insurance in all of Canada. Is that a possibility? Would you entertain that?
No, I don't think it makes sense. I think the province has to step in, and they need to make it fairer for Brampton, and I have spoken to the Premier about it and will continue to, and I hope there's something in the next budget.
So with about 1 minute and 35 left, there's 3 things I want to to talk about. First of all, the state of the city, which is February 7th, where you're going to be on the panel. Anybody can go. They can get their tickets from the Brampton Board of Trade. You have the Mayor's Levy coming up January 21st, and you are going to the United Arab Emirates. And we talked to Evan Moore, the incoming chair of Brampton Board of Trade, with under a minute. And the positive announcement of a university and hospital, where are we at?
I think we're in a good place. You know, I've had a number of businesses come in to talk to me about how they want to invest in Brampton, whether it's at Shoppers World, whether it's a large company that wants to build on Queen Street. People are looking at Brampton in a different way, and we're inviting them in. We want to find a way to build more jobs, more excitement, more energy into the city, and I'm working on that with my colleagues on council. I'm very optimistic. Having a university announcement in Brampton was the best Christmas present, and I was very, very good. And I want to have everybody come and join us at our levy on the 21st. Please come to City Hall and meet the Blue Ribbon panel. They're a great group of people, and we thank them for their volunteerism.
Madam Mayor Linda Jeffrey, thank you very much for spending the second year in a row with us. Again, January 21st, the Mayor's Levy, and February 7th, State of the City, where you can go and you can listen to what's going on. Brampton Board of Trade, another panelist, Mr. from the airport, and yourself. My name is Michael A. Charbon. Thank you so much for watching Brampton Focus, and thank you, Madam Mayor, for joining us. You can always get in touch with us at bramptonfocus.ca. Thanks for watching.